Well, hello, everyone. Happy Friday to you. Welcome to A Course in Miracles 365, Awakening to Love. I'm Tomás Garza, your host. And as you might imagine, because it's always the case, we're going through the workbook for students here in A Course in Miracles. And we've got some very, very wonderful, very direct, very poignant, very hard hitting, name your adjective. We've got it for you. Some ideas that we're reviewing here today in the workbook for students. So I want to, as always, invite your comments and questions here on the live stream. I love to get to them if you've got them here while I'm broadcasting. And as you may know, this is just a half-hour time slot. So I usually spend about 15 to 20 minutes talking about the ideas for the day and ways that we as human beings can apply them in our daily lives, and then to have time to take some comments and questions and say hello to you. So definitely, if you're catching me live, say hello. And again, if you're on the replay, definitely please say hello. And I appreciate all comments, questions, likes, hearts, shares of the page, everything like that. We aim to create a global community here, and that's exactly what we're doing. All right, so I thank you for joining me. Now, I want to just say a couple of words about what I was just talking about, and that's the application of today's idea, and all of the ideas, actually, because spirituality is not about belief. It's not about, okay, do you believe in God? Do you believe this happened? Do you believe that happened? It's about integration of these ideas into your life. In other words, a question that you can always ask yourself, and you'll profit tremendously on a spiritual level from asking this, is how can I integrate this into my life? How can I apply this? How can I apply this? How can I apply this idea that we're talking about? Actually, there'll be two of them today. And how can I take action on it to integrate it into the very fabric of my being? Another way that people can look at that is, how can I show up as this idea, joyfully embodying this idea? How can I show up as love? Not simply extending it, but as it, right? How can we do all of this? Great questions for us to ask ourselves. So these ideas apply to every single living being. It's universal, and it does not matter what tradition you were raised in, or what tradition or traditions you currently practice. We're blessed and fortunate indeed to live in 2021, right here with an internet connected world. Every world spiritual tradition is available at the click of a mouse. Simple Google search can net us all kinds of information about any world spiritual tradition. So no matter what you practice, there is something of value for you here. How can I be so sure as to say that unequivocally? Well, you're watching this, which means there's something you are meant to gain from today's ideas. So let's jump right into them. And hello, Isabel, how are you? Thanks for tuning in here. Okay, so in this review period, we're invited to spend some time, whether it's 15 minutes or 15 seconds. Doesn't matter, actually. Doesn't matter if you do it wholeheartedly and you're present with it. My mind holds only what I think with God, is the idea that we're talking about here on this review period. There's a lot in that statement, isn't there? My mind holds only what I think with God, and nothing else. That is the implicit component of this that is so wonderful. It's another way of saying Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. That is the summary of A Course in Miracles from the very first page, the introduction, in fact, to the text, where the Course says, the Course can be summed up in this way. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. My mind holds only what I think with God. So contemplate that. Contemplate that. I invite you to do that. I invite you to do that. And if you're not sure how this would look in your life, how this might translate into your applying this in your daily life, ask your guides. I always invite you to do that. And whether you have God, Jesus, the Holy Spirit as your guide, Buddha, whether you have any human or non-human teachers, whatever and whomever, ask, yeah, how can I apply this? What can I do today to be this idea? How can I do that? Great questions that we can all ask ourselves and should, and I definitely, oh yeah, most definitely invite you to. So the review ideas today are from lesson 148 in the workbook for students. So we're coming toward the end of this review period. There are 2 more review days, and then we'll be back into the workbook's pattern of 1 idea a day, plus commentary, plus suggestions for practice that you may be used to. All right, so the review ideas are lessons 135 and 136 today from the workbook. Lesson 135, all right. If I defend myself, I am attacked. If I defend myself at all, I added the at all. If I defend myself, I'm attacked. Okay. Yeah. This is not the way the world sees it, right? We see ourselves as pitted against one another. Our economic systems, whether it's capitalism or something else that you live under, yeah, our economic systems see us as in competition with one another. And, well, I'm very familiar with this. I live in the United States, and I don't know that it's possible to think of a more blatant exponent for that economic system of competition and reward for sometimes egregious behavior. All right. And that's as far as my commentary on that one is going to go. You can absolutely intuit more about what I feel on that. But wherever you're from, the world is set up that way. When we follow the ego, we see ourselves as separate. We see ourselves as cut off from one another and competing for what we assume to be, what we're told are limited resources. Right? We're all fighting. And in our economic and political systems worldwide, we use those terms. We use that language. Fight, compete. The language itself implies that there is a separation to begin with. So when we defend ourselves, well, we're attacked. We're making it real. No way. When we defend ourselves from a supposed threat, we're making that threat real. This is the way that it works in the world. This is a different way of looking at it, right? Because we're encouraged to be self-reliant. When we drive a car, we're encouraged to drive defensively, which you absolutely must do because there are a lot of crazy people out there on the road, right? So it's embedded into the fabric of each of our societies and cultures. And yet here we come with a statement that appears to be on a whole nother level. If I defend myself, I am attacked. I make that attack real. Now, in ultimate truth, in other words, truth with a capital T, what we're thinking about here and talking about with the Course in Miracles, what the Course presents is ultimate truth. You might have heard this as absolute truth. If you prefer to think of it as truth with a capital T, so be it. It's that. In other words, there is no separation of any kind. So if we defend ourselves, we're asserting that we're separate from our brothers, from our sisters, from other people, from any living thing. That's what we're asserting when we defend ourselves, verbally, physically, in thought, even, you name it. You're gathering from following this material, without a doubt, that our thoughts matter. Oh yeah, because what we're dealing with here are ideas. So it's in the mind. Salvation and awakening, enlightenment is completely an inside job. It's also an adult endeavor because we find that we must accept responsibility for our thoughts. Not just our actions, yes, our actions, but our thoughts, the thoughts that underlie them and impel that action, whatever it is. Change your mind, you change your entire experience. Why? You don't have to respond in the same way anymore. This is the genius of spirituality. It's the genius of A Course in Miracles. It operates on the level of mind where healing belongs. Change your mind. We are all here to learn to change our mind. So that's lesson 135. Lesson 136, sickness is a defense against the truth. We certainly don't learn that one, most of us, growing up, do we? Sickness is a defense against the truth. That we think of ourselves as the physical body. We become sick. We're not asking for it, clearly, right? If you come down with a serious illness, you're not begging for that illness. However, from the point of view of ultimate truth, it's another way of seeing ourselves as limited. It's another way of seeing ourselves as weak, inferior, cut off, isolated. Yeah. So from the ultimate point of view, sickness is a defense against the truth. What is the truth about us? Well, it is health, it's life itself. Oneness with God, love, right? That's the truth about ourselves. Now, here we are in the world, we don't realize it. So we need tools that operate on the level where we find ourselves. Enter A Course in Miracles, enter your spiritual practice, whatever that looks like. These are the tools that we use to retrain our minds so that we can act differently, that we can apply these ideas and therefore have a vastly different experience, all the way up to ultimately awakening to the truth itself, awakening to love. It's called enlightenment in many Eastern traditions, whatever you name this. And our journey is about taking these ideas to heart, contemplating them, really, truly thinking about them, and putting them into practice. So I mentioned in the comments to today's live what I refer to as The View. And well, I'm not talking about the television show, The View. What I'm talking about here is from Buddhism. There are many Buddhist traditions that encourage us as practitioners to see things from the point of view that they call the view. Holding the view means keeping ultimate truth in mind. Yes, we must work here in the realm of form, in relative truth. We need to use ideas. We need to use words and other symbols to refer to ultimate truth, which is, of course, beyond all language. It's beyond consciousness, even, because there is no subject and object separate, right? It's beyond all of that. So before we can really begin to grasp that, we need to start with spiritual practice. Now, I don't know where you happen to find yourself on your journey, but if you're pretty far along, these are beautiful refreshers. And if you're just starting out, these are ideas that can seem a little shocking at first. But what the workbook invites us to do is to sit with them and contemplate them nevertheless. Yeah, to contemplate them nevertheless, to do the practice periods as close to the suggested method as possible, and sit with them. Sit in this doubt. If you doubt it, that's perfect. You're absolutely where you need to be. Oh, yeah. It's not about, do you believe this or not? It's about, are you willing to sit in skepticism? I mean, you may believe these wholeheartedly because you may have been applying these ideas for years or decades, lifetimes. If you have been, fantastic, right? But if you are questioning any of this, I love that. It's exactly what you should be doing. Sit in that and hold the willingness to the extent that you possibly can to entertain these ideas. My mind holds only what I think with God. If I defend myself, I am attacked. Sickness is a defense against the truth. Just sit with those ideas. That's what the Course invites you to do. That's what I invite you to do today. Okay. So Sue, hello, how are you? And hi, thank you for joining. Thank you for joining in. Now, and is this Petey Wolfon? Thank you so much. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Thank you so much for joining me here on the live today. Guys, if anyone has any questions or additional comments, please feel welcome to leave them here. This is just a 30-minute time window here, and I'm going to be signing off in a moment, but I will be back with you here tomorrow, and we're going to continue to take a look at some of these review ideas from the workbook for students. I like to use the term hard-hitting, but consider it a shock to the ego. Yeah, I mean hard-hitting in a good way. Yeah, because if it invites you to question everything that you now believe, then it's good. That's good. I invite you to sit with that questioning. And again, as I mentioned at the top of the show here, always be willing to ask yourself, how can I apply this idea today? How can I apply this right now in the midst of my daily life? All right. Thank you all for joining me. Have a great Friday and a great week.